Hello and welcome to the AA Ireland podcast. I'm Paddy Common.
And I'm Anna Cullen.
Today we're joined by Opel Ireland CEO James Brooks to talk through his career in the car industry, his views on the future of electrification in Ireland and the renaissance of the Opel brand.
Thinking of renewing or shopping around for car insurance to get the best deal? Did you know AA Car Insurance is tailored cover for you? AA members get fully comprehensive car insurance. With your policy you can drive your own car as well as other cars with the best level of cover. Terms and conditions apply. To find out more, go to the aa.ie. AA Ireland Limited, trading as AA Insurance, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
James Brooks has been involved in the Irish motor industry for many years and started his career at Opel, and after a long stint with Kia is now back at the helm of Opel Ireland. We discuss his career, the move to electric vehicles and the renaissance of the Opel brand both here and internationally. Let's take a listen. So we're joined this week by the CEO of Opel Ireland, James Brooks. James, thank you for joining us on the AA Ireland podcast.
Delighted to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
So look, first things first, I've known you quite a long time, but I'd love you to tell the listeners just a little bit about your own career. Give us a potted history of how you got to where you are now.
Sure. I started out, my background really was accountancy. I started out in Farrell Grant Sparks. I was there for 5 years. I moved into NCB stockbrokers for about a year on a contract basis, and I was doing my finals and my accountancy exams. And how I got into the motor business was I went around Sandyford Industrial Estate sticking my CV in companies' letterboxes, and lo and behold the phone call that came back was from Opel. We'd like to sit down and meet you. So that's really how I started in finance. Qualified when I was there, and then I suppose the motor business is always changing. Back then it was looking at regional offices, and while I was the financial controller, they were moving to regional offices in Stockholm, and there was opportunities to go into other areas of the business, network development, fleet, after sales. And I suppose the great thing about an accountancy qualification is it's like a little bit of a passport or a safety net in your back pocket. If you need to get out, if something doesn't go well, you can. The world always needs a good accountant on it. So I stayed there. And I stayed with Opel. Ultimately, I think it was 11 years I ended up staying with Opel. So it was very good. It's amazing that I've gone back. I left Opel. I suppose Kia was coming into the Irish market. I tell a story that my friend said, James, you're 11 years. You didn't know much about cars, but what do you know about furniture? And I said, it's not IKEA, it's Kia, the car. So it was a real opportunity to put your experience of the last 11 years together and try and build a team in Ireland and try and get that off the ground. And it was very, very good to me. And I suppose then the opportunity came. Gowan were taking over. There was changes in Europe, which I'm sure we'll discuss. Gowan were taking over the distribution rights of Opel in Ireland, and Mick Dwan came along and said, look, would you come back? Would you run it for us? And it's a bigger group. You always wondered what it's like to work for a national distribution company. And I suppose the offer was too good to turn down. It was, they had Peugeot already. I knew the people, I knew their style, so it was very attractive to move over. And I moved over to there in December 2019 after 14 years with Kia. So it's almost like I'm going
and
back
straight
home.
Into a pandemic.
It was straight into a pandemic. I'd had my gardening leave. I couldn't believe that I was only in the place two and a half months. I remember we were away in Frankfurt, and we were watching these Asian people with masks in the airport, and we were looking at them saying, they're absolutely mad, as we drank our cup of coffee. But little did we realise that it was so close to coming onto our doorstep.
I've always wondered what people do on gardening leave.
I suppose my first thing to do was I needed a knee replacement.
Okay.
So I rang my wife to say I've done the deed, and the second thing was I made the phone call to book my appointment for the knee surgery. But I suppose it gives you time to think. It gives you time to make new contacts with people that you've fallen out of touch with, and it also lets you prepare for the new world. But I suppose you don't always know what you're going to see or what you're going to get. I made the purpose decision of trying to meet my management team off-site in a hotel for lunch once a week, each one of them to say, you've nothing to fear, this is who I am, this is my style. I suppose the thing, as you would know, Paddy, is in the motor business, a lot of people know a lot of people. So if you've got a good reputation, you're fine. If you've got a bad reputation, you're in trouble. So anybody can find out what's a person really like with, and I know going to Gown, the research was done not through an agency or anything like that. What's he like? How good is he? You know, and with dealers, we share dealers with Kia and Opel, so they're very quickly able to find out what your style is, and that's what's really, really important. It's invaluable. But I enjoyed it. My wife probably didn't enjoy it as much because I was around the house a fair bit. Little did she realise it was a taste of things to come when COVID came along. But it was great not to have your mind racing at night, wondering about numbers. Are boats going to come in with cars and all that thing? So it was a break, and I was very conscious that this is going to be my last break, touch wood, for an awful long time. So tried to make the best out of it, to be honest.
I'd love to go back to your first stint at Opel, because obviously you've come full circle. Yeah. Opel, and certainly for me growing up, and you'll remember that Opel had a very particular relationship with Ireland, and it was obviously due to some very clever sponsorship at the time. Was that something that was around when you were with Opel the first time around?
I joined in June 1994, and some of the management team were away at the World Cup in the States. Okay, yeah. And I had a block booking for the Havelock end or the Lansdowne Road end in soccer already for the Irish team, but I thought I'd landed on my feet because, you know, it was a really attractive place. They had been number one in the market before. The business is just all about product, new product coming in, and everybody knows something about cars. So I really felt that I had landed on my feet. And the exposure that you got to all different types of businesses, launching a product, bringing it to the market, the campaigns, the incentives that you have to put behind it, the relationships that you had to develop with your dealers, and also with your customers out there. So I really felt I landed on my feet, and everybody knew who Opel was because they were on the front of every soccer jersey for the previous years. And I got to learn an awful lot from Arnold O'Byrne, who was the main man at the time who brought Opel into that sponsorship. And there was a great guy, Tony Carey, who was very good to me as a mentor, and I learned an awful lot from people.
And of course you worked with the great Aidan Doyle, who you would work with later on as well.
Yeah, Aidan, I remember being introduced to Aidan and said, you've got to get on with this guy in marketing. And I'm going, well, I'm finance. Why does finance have to get on with marketing? It was because he controlled the allocations of the tickets for the matches. But we developed a great relationships, and he came to work with me in Kia as well. So look, it's all about relationships. It's all about, you know, getting on with people, giving respect. I always try to treat people the same way as I was treated when I started out, and I think it pays dividends in the long term.
Let's have a chat about the Irish car market, because I know certainly listeners might not be privy to the quirks of the Irish car market. So can you give us a picture from your point of view, what's right with it, what's wrong with it, what things are peculiar to Ireland?
I suppose when we're talking to the Europeans and anybody who comes over to us, the first thing we have to stress to them is the seasonality of the Irish market. 25% of the year is done in January, 53% in the first quarter, and the last quarter is about preparing for January. We would always, our marketing programs, launch them to the dealers like everybody else, the end of October. November and December, you try to get your January market. And I think the Europeans find that very difficult to understand. The closest to us is the UK with March and September. Simi that I was involved with brought in the second reg plate. The problem with an industry that is so front-ended, 55%, is if it goes wrong, you're in trouble for the rest of the year. You're really playing catch-up, and it's hard to do that. But also, it's almost like farming, because, it's so seasonal. Employing people, you want people working at an even pace for the whole year. If you're selling all your cars in your dealership at a certain time, how do you manage their salaries? How do you keep them busy at certain times? Now, there are other parts of the business, the after-sale side and hard drive cars coming back, but this is what we have to explain to them. We need our stock. Has to be on the ground in December. We need our stock. It traditionally had to be on the ground in May or June to get that July market. So that's the biggest difference that we always have to point out to the Europeans when they come over to visit us.
And getting your stocking right, getting your order bank right, is it an exact science, or is there some sort of educated guesswork involved?
There's some great information, market information out there produced by the Society of the Irish Motor Industry. You also have experience, a team who knows what's happening. You can also look at some of the European trends that are there. You also may have a niche that is unique to your business. So really it's a case of sitting down with your planning team and you cut it once, you cut it twice, you cut it 3 times to make sure that you have it right. There are variances there depending whether on colours or engines or whatever, but ultimately you have to get it right. You have to sell the car. You know, you look at the guys selling fruit in town, they have to sell it because it'll go off. Of course. There's nowhere else for us to put the car. If we've bought the cars, we're not going to send them to the UK, we're not going to send them to Europe, because the only UK market is right-hand drive. So there are cars, we own them, but we also have our dealer network. We listen to them over the course of the year to say what's selling, what's not selling. One of the things I brought in when I came into Kia, and the same in Opel, is to narrow the spec range down and the number of derivatives that you have, because if you get it wrong, you know, it's a lot of units. Take, for example, a simple car, Corsa, sells really, really well for us. If you had 8 derivatives, trims, petrol, diesel, then you want to add in the colours, do you want a sunroof in that? You could order 30 cars and none of them would be the exact same. So what we try to do is sell the car, but get the dealers to sell the car that we have, not the car that we can get you in 8 weeks or 3 months or 4 months, is the way it's gone now at the moment.
But that has become a challenge, because there is an appetite for more bespoke vehicles by the Irish customer. Is that right? There
is, especially at the premium end. Somebody spending 80 grand, 100 grand on a car, or somebody spending 25 grand on a car. That's slightly different. Almost availability, and to be able to see the car that you want to buy. How do I imagine what a velour trim looks like in a car? Well, I'll tell you what, let's go out and see what I have got, what I can get you in the next week or the next month. That's a very good example of what you're going to get. People like to touch and feel and see what they're buying, so we find it far better to have those cars on the forecourt, ideally.
We'll deal with some of the challenges that we're facing with the industry at the moment, but just as an aside, we talked to a dealer in the last couple of weeks in the last podcast from a large dealer group, and he certainly outlined some of the challenges that the Irish motor industry faces going forward with taxation, with climate change, etc. I'd love your take on your perspective of changing towards EVs, changing towards newer technology, and on what the Irish government is doing or could do better.
I think ultimately the reality is staring at us. Many of the manufacturers have said that they will not make combustion engines from 2028, 2029, pick your choice. I used to go down to the country and I'd say to a dealer, you know, what about electric vehicles? And he'd say, look, we don't want those down here. My people are diesel. It's a diesel market down here. And I used to say to him, there's one of 3 things is going to happen. The Irish government is going to ban them. The European Parliament will ban them, or the manufacturers will stop making them. And I didn't realise at the time that all 3 would happen. So Opel, for example, come to 2028, 2029, we won't make combustion engines. And that's not a unique position in the marketplace. So the consumer is going to have to adapt. It's a bit like before, go way back, there was black and white television. So I prefer black and white televisions. They don't exist. You have to buy a colour television and so on. So it is coming. We are powerless to stop it. Consumer is going to have to follow the trend that is out there in the market. The environmental issues are really, really important. And I suppose it's not about ourselves, it's about our children or our children's children, that it is coming. And we have to, the motor industry is not unique. We can make big changes to the world and the environment. So why shouldn't we play our part?
But would you agree with the points that were made in relation to a difficulty for customers now moving into cleaner petrol and diesel cars because of taxation? Do you see that as an issue? That the point being made was that there's stagnation because some people can't afford to jump into EV yet. They feel that the current newer, cleaner petrol and diesel cars are too expensive, so they're staying in their existing technology. Is that something you see?
Well, it is out there because our car park is very, very old by European standards. The average car in the Irish market is around 12 years old. So despite the fact that we're selling new electric cars, we're selling cleaner petrol, cleaner diesel, and they're a lot cleaner than the cars that were there before, we are going to have to shift. There is a finish line in sight, and that is imposed to us either by Europe, and the manufacturers are following the European laws. So we're going to have to get there. How do people bridge that gap? Well, at the moment, we've seen over the years they've been bringing in what we would have in the industry have called dirty diesels from the UK. That has really slowed down because of Brexit and new tariffs that are brought in to stop that. But the world is changing, and I think we're powerless to actually stop it. It may be that people will keep some of those cleaner petrol and diesel cars for a little bit longer, but ultimately there is a finish line in sight there at the end of it.
There's obviously other challenges facing the car industry at the moment, semiconductor supplies, etc. How has that affected Opel so far?
I think it's affected us the same as everybody else in the market. I suppose ultimately there's been the perfect storm because we've had COVID, we've had the chips that we cannot get. The cars are becoming more and more complicated. I think you look at the manufacturers have said at one stage with COVID, stop, there's no demand. And I think some of those chip manufacturers found other places to sell their chips. The home computer thing has taken off so much that the chips were there. Ultimately, we have an industry that is there for the long term, whether it's Opel or any other brand. We're confident that it will come back. We're confident that people want the product that we sell, which ultimately is cars and vans and electric vehicles and so on. So it's a blip in time, and throughout my career in the motor industry there's always been peaks and troughs, and I look at my own team and say, look, don't worry, these are challenges. Sometimes we learn more how to manage our business with the challenges, and it will pass. Everything passes in time.
Shall pass.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about Opel's transition. Now, you can possibly disagree with me or not, but I think both domestically and internationally Opel went through a bit of a poor patch and possibly weren't at the levels they were historically. Why do you think that was? I won't ask you to comment on domestically, you weren't involved, but what do you think happened internationally with Opel that made them have a little bit of a blip?
Yeah, ultimately, Opel across Europe, including Vauxhall in the UK, was owned by General Motors. And I suppose General Motors was finding it more difficult. Ultimately, accountants run this and they're trying to look for a return on their money. They needed to invest. You're only as good as your last product that you launched. And I suppose it became more difficult to make money. I think they possibly had the business up for sale for a while. Therefore, if you're selling, you don't keep investing at a certain pace that you need to keep up with others. Ultimately, Stellantis struck a deal, bought it across, ready to invest, to make economies of scale with Peugeot, with Citroën and with the FCA brand that they've subsequently taken on board. So we're very confident about the future because the volume that we have with all those brands allows us to, economies of scale. It's the same spark plug in all of our cars. That makes a huge difference on the research and the investment and the engineers behind that. You have to invest in new technology or you will get left behind.
For those who don't understand Stellantis, can you just give us an explanation of that?
Yeah, Peugeot ultimately set up a new group company to bring all these new brands on board. Peugeot had been there for quite a while, really, really successful. It was a subsidiary of the Gowan Group in Ireland for over 50 years. But Stellantis really is the group company where all these brands ultimately report into worldwide. So whether you're in the States and you're buying Jeep, whether you're in Italy and you're buying an Alfa or a Fiat, you're in Germany or Ireland and you're buying a Peugeot or an Opel, all that is consolidated back into the Stellantis group as it's known.
So that means shared platforms, shared steering wheels in some cases, just to make things less complex.
Absolutely. Now, a lot of it, cars are, the passion for cars is sometimes the design, but what you don't see underneath is the bolt or the widget, and that could be in a blue and a red box because we can make savings, and better value for the customer by ultimately giving them a car that shares the part. It means in our new warehouse that we're bringing on board, we always have those parts on tap. There's no delays. We should be able to look after our customers a lot better because if it's not a Peugeot customer that's looking for it, it's an Opel customer that's looking for it or a Citroën customer.
So tell me about Opel in 2022. What is the Opel brand? Does it have a personality? What does it represent?
I suppose for me at the moment, my team, it represents our lives. We look after our dealers. We try to look after our customers. I suppose we're building our business back from where we are, from where we've been over a while, but everything is product driven. So in the last couple of years since I've come on board, we've launched Corsa, we've launched a new Grandland. This week, effectively, we've had a brand new Mokka, which is our number one selling car. We have a new facelift Crossland. And then also the van side has been very, very important to us because you're trying to build share, you're trying to build awareness, you're trying to get your badge out on the road. So the commercial vehicle side of the business is really, really important to us. And you look at the amount of vans that are on the road, there's a lot of customers out there, and there's not as many competitors out there either. You could have 30 competitors on the passenger car side. You might have 13 or 14 on the van side. But ultimately, what we want to do is deliver the right car in the right place with the right time for our customers, and make sure that the customers get a superior experience at the dealership when they buy that car, or if they want to bring it in for a service.
And obviously, your big news being Astra coming as well, which would have been a bread and butter car in Ireland for decades.
We're very, very excited about Astra. I've been over to Germany to see it, so we expect to have that for the July market this year. So we're really, really excited about it. We don't have to explain what an Astra is to anybody, because it was a bedrock of the brand. It was the best-selling car in Ireland a number of years ago. So everybody, you don't have to say the word Opel Astra. You say the word Astra, you know what it is. And I think the new design and the visors on the front, I think the Irish public will be excited when they see
it. Just from the outside looking in, there seems to have been a real renaissance in terms of design for Opel. It's a sea change from where it was even 4 or 5 years ago, I think.
Definitely. As I said, not to repeat myself, but it's product driven and it's design. People look at a car and they I remember Aidan, we were mentioning earlier, used to say people spend a time looking at the car over a number of years, ruling out what they won't buy. But everything, people are so passionate about cars. It is their second biggest purchase after their home, as you know.
Yes, it's an emotive.
It's
very
a real
emotive.
And you want to become a design-driven brand. That is really, really important. And also then you have to have the technologies in the car for the younger people to enjoy the comforts of, and to say that you're a modern brand out there in the Irish market at the same time.
Opel, like lots of other brands, have seen a massive move towards electrification, be it plug-in hybrids or full EVs. How have your customers embraced that? How has your brand embraced the transition?
Well, at the moment, we have Corsa and Mokka as pure EVs. We have Grandland as a PHEV. Astra in Q1 next year will have an EV, and we'll also have a PHEV. We have a lot of them on the van side, Combo, Vivaro and Movano on the van side, and they're different customers, the car and the van side. So the van side, it just depends on what sort of load you're carrying, because if you're carrying a heavier load, your range is going to be shorter. The guy selling pillows versus selling, steel, he's going to get a different range on it. But what you do see on the customer side, on the passenger cars, they take a lot longer to make up their mind. They're researching the car potentially a year out. And we have to make sure that, what they read in books is one thing, but they actually experience the car. So the idea of taking a customer onto the N7 and giving a 15-minute run around in an EV, that doesn't work anymore. So you have to let them have time. Yeah, and we have a simulator on our website where you can put in your type of driving, the temperature that's out there, and it'll calculate what range you will actually have. The range anxiety will disappear as the ranges are actually extended out into the future. But it's a slower process in buying an electric vehicle. They think a lot more, but when they come to the showroom, they know an awful lot more because their research is done.
I guess, are you finding that those customers who are more traditional are coming to the showroom with a newer attitude as the years come on towards EVs?
Yeah, definitely. There's two types of customers. The guy who wants to establish a green footprint for himself, and then there's the older customer who's saying, you know what, I'm getting near retirement. I need to change the windows. I need to reduce my costs. I want to get away from petrol and diesel. It's been costlier. I want to minimise my costs. I'm not doing as much driving as I did when I was younger. So how do we as a family adapt without having the children versus the young person who's mad keen for? There's a lot of power in electric vehicles. It's a different style of driving. And you asked me about the government. The government has been very encouraging. They have really ambitious targets, as you know, 1 million vehicles by 2030. There are huge electric grants out there for businesses and employees to do it. There's no BIK on their cars at the moment. So to be fair to them, they have put a good stimulus out there. I think the chip crisis of the last couple of years has probably slowed a little bit that momentum down, but there are exciting opportunities and choices out there for the customer.
I think everyone would agree that the government has done an excellent job in terms of the rollout of EV grants, etc. Would you have a view on whether it was a little bit premature to pull back on the PHEV grant?
I'm in the motor business. Any support that we can get for government, I'm not going to stand back from it to say we shouldn't have it, but for many, PHEV was a stepping stone to an electric vehicle, and we would have encouraged the support that was there. We would like to see more people use that as a stepping stone to the full EV. So we're disappointed as an industry and as a person working from Opel to see that disappear. But ultimately, the solution is going to be full electric vehicles or commercial vehicles.
I guess put another way, I think what we tend to hear is that there was a choice of either continuing PHEV and cutting EV shorter, or continuing with EVs, and I think that everyone would agree it was possibly better to go with the longer EV strategy, right?
I think so, knowing what the end game is, and I think for people to do their research. If you have too much of a choice, you're confusing the customer. The customer may have thought they were going green, but they weren't going as green as they could do. And it is €10,000 is a big grant for the average punter out there in the market buying the right vehicle. So we're encouraged.
And obviously, we know that those grants can't stay at the level that they're at. So obviously, within reason, I know supply is an issue. Is now a very good time to try and buy an EV?
It is. You may have to wait for it, but I would encourage people to look. That support, as you say, won't be there forever. And there is a great choice out there. We have a great choice within our own range. I think you have to try an EV, try and get it overnight or experience it for a weekend to see, how it works for your living. The range anxiety, people say, I'm going to Cork, I'm going to Galway. Will I get there? Will I get a charging point? How often do you do that?
That's the question. You ask someone, how often do you go to Kerry? Oh, well, I go once a year on holidays. You don't buy a car based on 51, 1 week at 52.
Yeah, and there's a lot of lucky families that have two cars in their driveway. And, if you're that little bit anxious, take the second car rather than the first car. But at the ranges there are charge points. You see filling stations, you know them as well, that have this. The chargers are getting quicker and quicker, superchargers that are there. So look, it is coming. It is a lifestyle choice. It is better for the environment. The savings are even greater now, despite the change with prices on fuel and electricity. Ballpark, it's about a third of the cost to put fuel or electricity in your car. It is a huge saving for people that are doing reasonable mileage there.
How is the Opel dealer network at the moment? Are you happy with it? Are you happy with the progress there?
Yeah, we've had a couple of appointments over it. We haven't lost any dealers, which is the important thing. They've stuck with us. It is a partnership. You are only as good as the people who sell your cars. We brought a couple of people on, Sheehan's in Terranure. We brought Cummins on in Portlaoise. The great thing is, as we bring new product to the market, we're getting plenty of people knocking on our door, interested to hear what our story is, what our plans are, and have you got an opening in my region that we would love to come on board. I think the other side of that is with the Stellantis group, we have a lot more to offer with franchises in different parts of the country, because to be honest, Gowan can offer you a Peugeot, a Citroen or a Fiat dealership, among others, Alpha and so on. So as Gowan Group that I'm involved with is a serious player out there in the market. We're selling ballpark 1 in 4 of the commercial vehicles that are out there. And the key is, with a big company like Stellantis, we're constantly able to bring new product to the market.
And what the benefit of two groups, Stellantis and Gowan, what would be the benefit to the Irish consumer with such a show of strength, I guess?
I suppose we mentioned the manufacturing side, the economies of scale, where there's huge benefits on that. From our side in the Irish market is we're able to offer you choice within an individual segment. So you may have a C segment car. Within our brands, we're able to offer you an individual choice. So then the experience of the team that's there, we're able to suit and match what customers need.
So what does the future look like for Opel, both domestically and internationally, from your crystal ball?
Well, obviously the biggest thing that's on the horizon is the electric story, really, because we're phasing out, as I said, the combustion engine by around 2028. So we're trying to train and educate the dealers. We've got to look after the car park that we have, because obviously over the last 10, 20 years you've built up quite a sizable car park out there. Ultimately, we're always waiting for the factory to tell us what is next. We have Astra coming along this year. Grandland we've just literally done. So it's all about product, and as we go in every year we get together and we see the vision that they have for the next 2 or 3 years, what products are actually coming. So we're excited because we've kind of a lot of that's been done online. We'll get together, I would imagine, towards the end of the summer and share the vision that we have and come back and talk to our own dealers and excite them for what is coming down the line.
James Brooks, thanks for your time.
No problem. Thanks, Paddy.
So James seems to take quite a no-nonsense approach to business. It was really a great listen.
Yeah, you suspect that Opel are in very good hands here. And thanks again to James for joining us.
Of course, you can read lots of reviews of Opel products on the AA Ireland blog, the aa.ie/blog. And you will, of course, find us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook and TikTok. Please subscribe to the podcast, and until next time, goodbye and stay safe.